Hi mate, hope you're good. I said I was going to do a video to reply because you're right. I have casually said a few times we didn't have Ozil at his peak, like at his prime, in a video where I was building an Arsenal midfield out of a selection of players and I left him out for Odegaard, and I think this was on a video about Odegaard's key passing stats, and I think I might have mentioned it again. Basically, I'm going to agree with you, by the way. It wasn't so much that we didn't sign him at the right time in his career, maybe an element of that, which I'll get into, but yeah, we signed him at 25. Like, I make it sound as though we signed him at 32 from Chelsea and he stank the gaff out before fucking off somewhere. So yeah, let me get into kind of what I mean by that, a bit more clarity, because yeah, I've definitely been very sort of vague when I say that. I do think there is an element of his age, and I know that seems mental at 25. I know most players you look and go, you sign them at 25, you get in their best years, they tend to mature into their role, understand their game a bit better. But that's not always the case. I feel like Ozil did peak a bit earlier, like obviously exploded on the scene quite young. Obviously his technical ability weren't going to go anywhere at 25, 26, 27, far from it, but he was actually quite explosive when he first was playing for, you remember him in the young Germany side that came up against England and for Madrid, and yeah, he was like, he could get up and down the pitch, he was quick and he was hard to get off the ball, and that kind of left quite early in his career for one reason or another, probably in part the fact, which I'll get onto, the circumstantial situational aspects that made it maybe look more prevalent that his physicality had reduced, and that being that he was then trying to do it in the Premier League, which you obviously know is the most physical league in the world, certainly more physical than La Liga, in an Arsenal side that weren't really well suited to that either. We had a lot of diminutive, smaller, more technical players, as opposed to today we have a lot more physically robust players that are more capable on that side of things. So yeah, he kind of, again, when I say he weren't in his prime, it's not that he couldn't be, it's that the situation he found himself in meant he weren't able to showcase his attributes as best as he could. Not just because it was very physical, but also because of the players around him, as you've said. Like, he was no longer setting up Ronaldo, Benzema, Higuain, Di Maria. Like, he was setting up Giroud and players like that, and especially that season where Giroud would have missed water if he fell out of a fucking boat and we should have won the league when Leicester did. If you look at his seasons, he only had one real big season. Should have had definitely two with that Giroud drought season, as I mentioned, where I think he got 19 assists, and I think his second highest assist was 8, and it was that season, but obviously he should have had a lot more. Was it 15 games Giroud went without scoring? He probably gave him chances in every one of those, at least 1 or 2 per fucking game. So again, though, that's where the sort of circumstances meant that we didn't get to see him at his best, because he didn't have the players to provide for. And then the game kind of moved on from him quite quickly in the years following that. The Gen press, I'm not entirely sure, on that came in, and it just clearly didn't suit his style of play. So again, not an age thing, which I think when I say we didn't have him in his prime, that's kind of what people jump to. Again, the situation he found himself in meant that he couldn't best showcase his attributes because he was required to do a lot more pressing, and he didn't have the tank to do that. I don't think he was lazy. He just weren't built to do that. He isn't that style of player, and you can't really not be that style of player anymore. You can't carry passengers. Like, if one doesn't go, the press doesn't work, and he obviously didn't get on with the new management ideas. Wenger very much go and express yourself and we'll build around you. But Unai, much more regimented, no, you will be here doing this because that is what the team needs. And, you know, from then on, it was just a steep decline. So yeah, I hope that makes a bit more sense when I casually say that we didn't have Ozil at his prime. It was less that we signed him at the wrong time, although I do think physically he did peak that bit earlier, which does happen sometimes. Perhaps that's why Real Madrid were happy to let him go, which would be a weird thing to do at 25 if he was still about to step into the peak of his powers. But yeah, it's more the situation he found himself in with the teammates around him, as you've said, the space that kind of football went into tactically, which just meant we couldn't see the best of him. And if we could just, you know, roll his clock back and take his time and put it 10, 15 years ago and we signed him at 25, I think we'd be talking about one of the, you know, all-time Arsenal greats. And when I compare him to Odegaard in those situations, I think it's because it's the opposite. It's the case of Odegaard. We've got him at the right time with regards to the players around him and the space that football occupies now and his attributes. So I feel like we are going to get the best of Odegaard in a way that we couldn't really do with Ozil for much beyond his maybe first 2 seasons. So yeah, anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Usual shit. Shoved in.